My name is Dr. Debbie Wake. So I wear three hats. I'm a clinical reader with the University of Edinburgh. I'm a NHS diabetes consultant, and I'm a co-founder and CEO of My Way Digital Health, which is a spin-out company from the University of Dundee, which is where I used to work. So the background really to our problem is that, well, 10% of the world population has diabetes and rising. We spend about £1.5 million per hour in the NHS treating diabetes, and 2% of global GDP is spent treating diabetes. So in Scotland over the last decade, we saw a trebling in prevalence of diabetes, and we needed to think about other ways to tackle the diabetes epidemic. And one of our solutions was to start looking at data-driven innovation. So we joined up all the healthcare data in Scotland for diabetes to create a single platform that all clinicians in diabetes could use for managing diabetes to make care delivery much more effective and efficient. And we created a platform for patients, and that platform was My Diabetes My Way. It allows patients to access their NHS health record. We also now pull in data from home recorded devices such as home blood glucose recordings, Fitbits and other various apps. And what it provides patients is access to their healthcare record. It allows them to access automated advice through the system, through rules and algorithms. We give them access to educational resources, structured education, tools to communicate with their healthcare professional, peer learning tools and care reports. And we know that good self-management by patients through things like lifestyle change, regularly checking your feet, adjusting your medication sufficiently, turning up for your screening appointments is all really important for improving diabetes care and driving down costs and making care delivery more efficient. So in Scotland, we've rolled this product out throughout the whole of Scotland over the last 10 years. We've now got about 40,000 registrants in Scotland who use the product. And through the My Way Digital Health spin-out company, we're now starting to commercialise the product into England and a number of areas in England, and also looking at overseas expansion. The cost of the product is very low cost. It costs about £1 per patient per year to run it based on a population level. And considering it costs about £6,000 per year to treat a person with diabetes, that's a drop in the ocean. And we've been able to show that we can have quite a significant impact on both clinical costs and on health economic savings. One of the other things that we're involved with, we've created a lot of innovation funding through the spin-out company, including an Innovate UK £1 million project where we're looking at artificial intelligence, starting to say how can we take these big, deep data sets and mine them to try to predict complications, predict which drugs patients are going to respond to, and predict correct diagnosis in patients. So we're now investing a lot of our time and effort in doing that, and hoping to deliver algorithms and rules and models within the platform that will give us really personalised, automated, driven support to diabetes patients over the next 2 to 3 years. Quick case.
My name's Annabelle. I've only got one hat, unfortunately, but I'm working on getting some several more. I am a data scientist at Snap40, and I've come along today just to introduce our device, introduce our platform, and tell you a little bit more about what we do at Snap40. As my fun fact, which we were all asked to bring along, this is a bit of a throwback for me, having graduated from the informatics department, so it's really nice to be back in this room. It's also really nice to see Michael Rovatsos, who actually taught me my first AI class ever, so thanks to you, because I probably wouldn't be here now. So, Snap40 is a small but growing health tech startup based here in Edinburgh. We make this device, which I'm modelling for you here today, that continuously transmits over the internet onto our cloud platform. We take the sensor device that's coming in through the we take the device sensor data that's coming in through the platform, and in real time turn those into accurate, reliable vital signs. So we cover things like heart rate, breathing rate, blood oxygenation, temperature, and also movement as well. We then take these vital sign time series and take that one step further to actually model the risk of deterioration of a patient. So as you can imagine, this looks like quite a clinical setting. This is used both in hospital, but also for patients at home, for example, who have chronic conditions where healthcare staff all of these vital signs and the automatic deterioration alerts that we send through come through to an app that healthcare staff can see, so they can see all of their patients on their ward, for example, on their rounds that they're going to visit at home. They can see all their vital signs, and they can act in real time on those deterioration alerts that are coming through. So really, what we're doing is allowing clinicians to prioritise the care to the patients that need the most. I'll be very brief because I know we've not got much time. When the organisers kind of first got into contact with SNAP 40 about asking whether one of us would like to come along and speak, I got quite excited because as a woman in a tech role and as a woman in a tech role in a health tech startup, I thought this was a really good intersection, you know, of what I do, and a very relevant kind of organisation to be involved in. So we really, we often get a lot of questions about our device, about our platform. Like they mentioned, we'll have a Q&A at the end, but if you do have any other questions at all, feel free to email me, feel free to get in touch on our Twitter, and we'll be sticking around afterwards as well. So if you do have any questions, we would love to chat to you. I have several colleagues in the crowd as well, so if you want to just give a little hands up. We'd love to chat further with anyone interested. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Craig. I'm the co-founder of Storm, a digital agency based here in Edinburgh, and we've developed Linus, a digital health platform. But the fun fact first, it was my birthday yesterday, so 21 again. This evening I'd like to share with you why and how we're attempting to use patient-generated health data to support proactive, participatory and preventative models of care. Today, all of us are generating huge amounts of data. Each of us creates about 1.5 gigabytes of data every single day through our use of technology, from taking selfies at the one end through to exchanging messages or creating important documents. And our homes as well are becoming increasingly interconnected and smart, from sensors that detect movement to systems that you can control remotely. We're creating a further 50 gigabytes every day. And what's fueling all of this are the more than 20 billion IoT devices that are out there. By 2020, it's estimated that 1 million new IoT devices will come online every hour. So essentially all of us are generating lots and lots of data, and much of it's health data, from physical activity data to sleep and nutrition and much more. But using that data as part of your care is actually not widely embraced. But today it's possible to measure almost every part of human physiology, which should actually see us paving the way for the creation of unimagined digital health services. But at the same time, health organisations, as we know, are under huge pressure to move care for long-term conditions from hospital to home. And this is where the Linus platform comes in. It allows patients to securely share their health data from apps, sensors and devices with health professionals, who then use insight generated by the platform to inform decision-making and what we call machine-assisted decision support. But to give an example, we're working with 400 COPD patients in Greater Glasgow and Clyde. Some of them have home NIV masks which continuously stream data to the platform, coupled with other health data, allowing us to stratify risk and predict likelihood of an imminent exacerbation. And with this insight, community healthcare professionals can proactively support the patient at home before they have an exacerbation, rather than responding after an event. Linus is being developed for remote monitoring of long-term conditions like COPD, but also for asynchronous virtual clinics for conditions like dermatology, as well as trying to optimise care pathways for a whole host of other conditions. For us, this evening is great because we are super keen all the time to engage with any health tech related people, to understand the journey that you've been on to get to where you've got to, and to identify opportunities for collaboration. Thank you.
Director of Innovation at the Usher Institute, but at the University of Edinburgh, but we're actually not very good at innovation, so it's quite an easy job, I suppose. So I'm also a researcher, which is my main job, and I'm a social scientist, and I evaluate the introduction of health information technology in healthcare settings. So I've done that for about 12 years now. This is the fun fact, and you can guess where this comes from. So this is where I come from, and this is Usher Institute. We're split on two different locations at the moment. Actually, no, it's 4, but these are the 2 main ones. We're about 300 people. We do a lot of research and not much innovation. which is a bit of a shame because the government is focusing on innovation, and we can only solve the biggest healthcare challenges by collaboration with industry. So we need to get our act together. The university is doing pretty badly in relation to industry income, so and that's letting us down on all these kind of measurements. So now there's this great opportunity of £1.3 billion invested by the Scottish government, the UK government, and the University of Edinburgh to make Edinburgh the data capital of Europe. And it's called the City Deal. Our SRO is Nick Mills from Usher, who's here, who you can follow this up with. We'll give us a wave. And Michael might talk a little bit more about this because Usher and BASE, which Michael is leading, are part of 5 innovation hubs that are part of the City Deal. So we really need to get our act together in Usher to achieve these kind of objectives. We're doing okay on the research front. But one of our main challenges is entrepreneurship and industry engagement, and that's what I want to move forward. I think I actually managed to stick to 3 minutes, which is quite good for an academic.
Hi, I'm Michael, and I'm very grateful to Katrin for having explained everything that I don't need to explain anymore. So, first thing to say, I know nothing about health. The closest I ever got, fun fact, to doing health and data is that I was worried about my elevated pulse, so I got my partner to give me a Fitbit as a present, and that then confirmed my worries because I can now measure it and I can see that I'm stressed and so on. So that's my relationship to health and data. So I'm a humble geek. I have worked in AI for about 20 years. And I'm the director of the BASE Center, which is physically connected to informatics. As an academic, I'm based in informatics. We know nothing about health in general, but we've worked with people from health and medicine for many, many years. There's a long history in the university of working across the disciplines, and I see lots of colleagues in the room who have been doing that. So if you need the tech, the data, the AI, then come and talk to me. And I actually think health is a really interesting challenge because health brings together a number of things. It brings together very complex organizations and institutions that have to change if they're going to innovate using data. And we have people from the NHS in the BASE Center trying to find out how that's going to work from within the NHS. But of course, there's big innovation opportunities, big opportunities to work with the local ecosystem, to work with SMEs, to work with startups, to work with big corporates, to work with the kinds of organizations who might not even know that health data is useful, like insurance. And when I say insurance, of course, probably all your eyes say, oops, risks. And I'm actually personally in my research really passionate about responsible AI, responsible research and innovation, AI ethics, anything that's to do with promoting equality and diversity in technology, because I really think we are a terrible, terrible industry that doesn't do that very well, and we have to do better. And I'll try to do my bit and, come to talk to me if you think you need some geeks to help you with some stuff. And if you think you have really exciting data for them, because they are quite demanding. They are only really interested in the stuff that's really hard. And, but if you get them excited, they're extremely helpful. So thank you.
Hi, my name's Alan. I'm from Product Forge. Product Forge organise an annual event held over 4 days that bring together people just like you who have an interest in health technology, be that as a subject matter expert, a clinician, a data scientist, to develop new digital product prototypes in a fun, creative and diverse environment. I'm actually going to play a wee video. My fun fact would be, we actually have a number of past participants and attendees in the room just now, including one of the winners of our first health hackathon. Sorry, Mark. Could I get a quick show of hands who's been to Product Forge before? So you don't have to take my word for it. You can speak to one of these wonderful people and ask them what they think. So the video I'm going to play is geared towards clinicians. The event isn't just for clinicians, but you're going to hear from some of our past attendees why you would want to come along.
The hackathon will give experienced clinicians, healthcare professionals the opportunity to come forward with their ideas for improvement in their own area and to link up with people who will be able to help them to bring those ideas to fruition, to work together with experts in other fields who have created solutions in the past.
When senior clinicians do come along to the hackathon, I think they get taken aback a bit because they realise that they meet really new people with some new ideas, things they may not have learnt about before. They make new network connections, and I certainly have met loads of new people that I would never have met before.
Clinical innovation relies on a really broad set of skills, and no one person can have the full collection of skills. And that's why I think it's so important that clinicians can come together with designers and developers to work on projects together, because everyone in that circle learns something from the other person.
Clinicians need to be really part of the development of these technological solutions, but also to be part of translating what the patients will need, how they will get the best value from what we're developing. Clinicians need to be really close to this because they're the people who understand the NHS, but also understand the patient's needs.
I do have advice, just do it, just come along, have a go. And I think that's the message for the hackathon. You might have an idea and you might think, oh, this is really silly, but I'm hesitant, I'm shy about saying it. But in a forum like the hackathon, great ideas can come out of often just a small comment.
If you're a clinician, I really encourage you to come along to this event. You'll meet really interesting people, you'll learn a whole host of important skills, you'll have a great time, and who knows, it could change the direction of your career like it did for me.
Thank you very much. The event is in February. If you're interested, come and speak to myself or Max, who's filming tonight. Cheers.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth, and with Joe Halliday and Scott Cray, we founded Talking Medicines. So we love innovative visual data solutions, and our product is MedSmart. It's an app-based product. It's free for the consumer to download and then scan in all of their community medicines that they're taking. So we work very closely with the MHRA, which is the regulatory body here in the UK, to make sure that information is accurately presented to users of MedSmart. So we've got a huge emphasis there on the quality and the security of our data. So why is this important? Well, there's a huge wastage of the use of medicines. Around 50% of medicines are not actually taken correctly, and this causes hundreds of millions of pounds to the healthcare system. So that's the problem that we're trying to tackle. And why is that? We believe it's because people are not sure exactly why they're taking medication. It can be quite confusing when they're on a number of different types of medicines. And so through MedSmart, we help them to understand what the different ingredients are of the medicines. We break down each of the components within the medicine, and we also surface up strength and formulation and some information around how to take the medicine and what the medicine is for. So what we're really interested in is getting closer to users and really understanding what they want to see through the data. So we are working very closely with our users at the moment to understand the effectiveness of MedSmart. So we've got a quality of life and wellbeing study up and running, but we also just want to listen to people and hear what their thoughts are on how data, what data they'd like to see, how they would like to see that shared with them. So my fun fact for this evening, as I was coming in this morning with my son, I said to him, oh, I'm doing a talk later, so what's my fun fact? So he was saying to me, well, if you chewing gum when cutting onions, it causes you to cry less. And that was my fun fact from my son. Thank you.
My name is Liz Newbeck. I'm Professor of Nursing and Head of Cardiovascular Health at Edinburgh Napier University. And I'm particularly interested in how we use technology to enhance patient access, so diagnosis of cardiovascular disease and patient self-management. So my fun fact, it's not going to work there. I don't know if anybody's seen this guy. He can solve 3 Rubik's Cubes in about 27 seconds while he's juggling. I can't do that, but I can do one in under 2 minutes, which is a credit to my competitive nature because my brother challenged me and I can beat him now. Okay, so I mean, over the last sort of 10 years, I've been looking at ways to improve access to self-management of cardiovascular disease, and we have a number of different projects going on in this space. I'm particularly interested in user-centered design, in long-term sustained management of engagement with apps. We know that people really don't use them for the long term, so we need to be adaptive. So this is one of our projects currently running. This is it sounds as though it's very similar to the diabetes app that was discovered. So it's an app that pulls the data out of the GP's electronic health record, pre-populates an app for people who are at high risk of cardiovascular disease or have existing cardiovascular disease, and helps them set goals and self-manage. And so this was developed following a user-centered design process. So the patients really were engaged right from the outset, looking at what they might like, what sorts of information that they wanted. We tried to keep it as simple as possible. So the things that we found are most important are simplicity, privacy, credibility of sources, and so they have a space to set goals. They said they wanted to share their data. In fact, they're not using that. The feature that's been most used in the Connect app is the risk dial, which overall seems to be the thing that people respond most positively to. They like the idea that they can change their health, and they like the visualization of the way they can change their health. We've undertaken a number of projects now doing pharmacy screening using an AliveCore device, a single lead ECG, looking for people with previously undetected atrial fibrillation. And if you look in the community, people over the age of 65, around 1.5% of the people you screen at a single time point will have previously undetected AF. What's most important is that these people are at high risk of stroke, and therefore there's something that we can actually do to intervene. And the other thing is that knowledge is extremely poor amongst people with existing atrial fibrillation. So in a population screened, we screened 1,000 patients. We found that of 50 patients who had previously known AF, 23 of them had no idea that they had atrial fibrillation. 18 of those were taking warfarin for atrial fibrillation and had no idea why they were taking it. And that's obviously a key problem with adherence. So a challenge for us. This is another app that we've got, which is using an avatar to help people understand when they should present with chest pain. So access and presentation for chest pain is a major barrier and a significant problem in terms of reperfusion of the myocardium when somebody's having an acute coronary event. So this at least improves knowledge, improves intent to call an ambulance in a timely fashion. But what we want to now do is see if it actually, that knowledge translates into action. So that's the next phase for us. And so I think that's my key projects I was going to share. We have a number of different projects, but the real focus is on long-term engagement, user-centered design, and how we involve patients. And I'm really pleased to hear that patients are talked about, and I'd encourage you to include patients in your hackathon because they really need to be central to anything we develop. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Pete Jameson. I am the Scotland CTO, and I primarily work with inside NHS Scotland and Scottish Government. And my role fundamentally is to help the community at large really understand how Microsoft is investing in the technology. So a little bit about me. I've worked in system service architecture pretty much my entire career, apart from my interesting fact, which I'll come up with in a second. I actually worked on the original e-pharmacy deployment for AMS. And my interesting fact and my fun fact is I'm also a fully qualified airline pilot. So if talk about a slight career change, it was an early career change, but yes, that's my little fun fact. So why am I here? Fundamentally, it's because of what we can do with data. If you haven't had a sense of it already, data is all around us, and it's a massively powerful tool, but it's also a massively important tool to be able to do something meaningful with. Collecting data, and we heard Craig talk about the amount of data we're collecting as individuals, as humans, but that data is relatively meaningless unless we can lock it and do something really cool with that. And that coolness, unfortunately, means that we have to have a really good platform to build it on, and that's what Microsoft is investing in significantly. And while this looks really cool as an AI graph and on mixed reality, and it is one area that Microsoft is investing in, we're heavily investing in our platform. So you've got genomics as a service, for example. So if you want to map your genomes, you can do on a weekend if you've got nothing else to do. Not suggesting that's potentially the best way of spending your weekend, but hey, it might be. But we are heavily investing in this area of technology, and we are passionate about health because, unfortunately, Microsoft might get the reputation for doing Windows and Office, and while that's a great thing, and I'm not going to decry the joys and beauty of Excel, it's not necessarily the most exciting thing in the world, and we are doing some incredible things. But it is our partner network, and you've heard from some of them, and Craig is a partner of Microsoft as well. Some of the things that we do, which is really great, they just make us look really, really good, quite frankly. And it is the platform that we provide. And it's an absolute pleasure to be here and serve the people of Scotland. As a wee tidbit as well, as far as NHS Scotland goes, we also appreciate massively that it's maybe been very frustrating. If you work across boards at the moment, try and collaborate with colleagues that potentially might be in one board to another has been massively frustrating. I'm delighted to tell you that NHS Scotland has signed a deal with Microsoft to sign up to 161,000 users onto our Office 365 platform, which will be going live over the next couple of years, which will allow each single person that's got an NHS Scotland account at the moment to collaborate across boards, across boundaries, and this will be the first time this has ever been possible. So I'm absolutely delighted to say that we're going to start giving you the tools to equip you to do your jobs more efficiently, talk to your colleagues, collaborate better, and hopefully bring a better service to the most important people which we're serving, which is the public and our patients. So thank you very much for your time this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'll be looking forward to speak to you a bit later on.
My name's Alison McCum. I'm the Caldecott Guardian for NHS Lothian and the local guardian of the 10-digit unique patient identifier, the CAI number. It's my job to look after the confidentiality of the living and the recently dead 70 to 100 years of Lothian. What I've found is that people think of their data as being part of themselves, heart and soul. So data security is actually a really important part of confidentiality. And just so that you're aware, so between April and June 2018, in NHS Lothian we had 1.3 billion web transactions, of which 57.36 million were suspect. So that's about 4.5%. So if we try and ignore that, that's kind of like ignoring that diabetes exists. So my passion is equity. And thinking about how we enable people to create and use data sets that help tell stories about social, structural inequalities, how the unfair distribution of premature death, disability, disease and distress might be alleviated. So this is a representation of the differences between those, and obviously it'd be even better if these lovely non-gendered people here turned out to be the leadership team and ran on to the pitch part way through. So we're very lucky in Scotland to have people trust us with their data and with their health. The people of Scotland own the NHS, they're not its customers to be exploited. Education, training and research, because of the way our laws and regulations are set up, are part of the health service. They're not secondary, they're not additional, they're a core part of how we do business. That's not the case in many countries, and that's one of the reasons why Scotland is the best place to do this kind of research. Now, my role Caldecott Guardian, I have stewardship of that trust, and I look at about 500 patient applications a year, a mixture of national, local research and practice. And these are the things that I take into account. I used to do all of that myself. I'm increasingly finding and bringing on other experts to help me with it, and I'm looking for some more help tonight. So the sorts of things I look for when assessing applications, a commitment to health in terms of the wider, higher attainable standard of health, not just healthcare. And there's no difference in the standard of care and curation I expect as to whether it's research, whether it's patient care, whether it's audit, evaluation. Everything has to be done to the same standard. Oops. So you need a reason to share data is what I'm looking for. For example, welfare rights advisors can look at medical records in order to improve people's health. I look for unanswered questions. And I look for help from the past, a commitment to answering patients' questions. These are from the Lothian Health Service Archive, the UNESCO awarded archive. And the other thing that the archive does is it helps people fill in gaps. For example, in terms of reducing the stigma of mental health for patients who are hospitalised and might be missing from patient stories. So I look for unanswered questions, I look for a reason to share data, and I look, as others have said, to a commitment to respecting people, their stories, their data, an understanding of what's possible, and a willingness to engage the community in design, development, and implementation. Thank you very much. And I'll tell you my fun fact later, but it relates to this. Thank you. Oops.
Hello everyone, I'm Edon, and I run a company called Digital Treetop. Essentially what it is, it's a data science software company. What we specialize in doing is building applications that use real-time data to either personalize services to human users or to provide decision support, or in some cases they can be they perform semi or fully automated functions within other systems. So within healthcare, we're looking at a problem where we're building a product that we're doing some early validation of that in the beginning of 2019 in eye care. Like many other places in the UK, your treatment as a patient is partially delivered within primary care professionals and also within secondary care. In many cases, when something more complicated is seen in primary care, the person in primary care will escalate that or ask for some advice from somebody in secondary care. That can provide quite a number of challenges, and in many cases, sometimes up to 50%, the referrals that come through need not be referred. This is what the clinicians are saying to us. Also, the treatment of patient care in primary care can sometimes be up to 50% cheaper. So we're really looking to address some of the limitations in the way that things are done at the moment through our software. And we do that in two ways. I'll talk about the data first. So we're using data real data that is sent from primary care to secondary care. We're also using some outcome data that exists within the health board, a regional health board, and we're also using some validated algorithm to create a rule-based system. So there's two primary ways our system or our software addresses the challenge in this area. In the first level, it provides a rule-based system that a professional in the community can use to get a second opinion, almost as a first line of support. And then that can be used to prepare that referral before it goes through. The second area in which our software tries to address this challenge is in providing almost a vetting tool which a clinician in the hospital can use to more efficiently and more quickly go through the sheer influx of referrals requests that they get. The end goal of all of this, that's my alarm, time for me to stop talking. The end goal of all of this is to provide faster vetting, more efficient and consistent vetting, but also at the core of all of this is actually to tackle waiting lists. And this is applicable not just within the eye care area that we're looking at, but across many other ology disciplines. And also, we're having some early discussions with forensic science and the Crown Prosecution Service. I'll end it there, but we're very keen to speak to anybody that's working with natural language processing, machine learning, and is interested in collaborating in the areas that we're working within. Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the invitation. I'm Philip Richards. I'm a clinician, so I'm here to provide the health part and not the tech part. I've been traumatized by the whole fun fact thing, but I've got a top tip from recent bitter personal experience, which is if you cycle your bike hard and fast into a stationary object, that's a bad idea. And secondly, if you bounce the handlebars up and down, that is not enough to check your bike for structural integrity. And thirdly, the second time you throw yourself at the tarmac enthusiastically is more painful than the first. So I'm a clinician, I'm a rheumatologist, and I have a particular interest in gout. My main hat is NHS, I have a university hat as well, and I'm very grateful to the Bayes Institute, who have helped me with this project already, and I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about this project. I'll introduce gout, which is a very well understood condition. It's associated with uric acid crystals, and it causes intense pain in the big toe commonly, but any joint can be affected. I had a patient this morning asked on a scale of 0 to 10, where 10 is the most pain that you can imagine in your joint, how bad was the pain? And she said 100. And that's characteristic. It's intensely painful, and it's frustratingly treatable, and the medicines won the Nobel Prize 30, 40 years ago, and they're cheap and widely available, and most people should be treated with gout effectively if they understand and take their drugs. But actually, it's not archaic and somehow comic. It's not just in the Middle Ages. This is a disease of our time. It is increasingly common, affecting 2.5% of the population, 5% of the American population. It's increasing in line with obesity and aging and cardiovascular disease and diabetes and all the rest of it. So it's a big problem, but actually 50% of patients aren't properly treated. 50% of those that are treated are inadequately treated. So 50% aren't even treated at all. 50% are treated, but half of those are inadequately treated. So we've got a real problem, and rheumatologists are too busy to think it's their problem, and GPs are too busy to manage it effectively either. So we need to find a smarter solution. Hooray. This is introducing Gout Smart, which I hope will be the solution. It's some supported self-management approach to gout. It utilizes uric acid finger prick tests, so just as diabetic patients can monitor their blood sugars, now gout patients will be able to monitor their uric acid. And we've developed, in conjunction with the Edinburgh Parallel Computing Centre, a smartphone app to guide treatment. And this is what we've been working on over the last 3 or 4 months, and our app is just about ready to run. I think it looks quite smart. I'm biased. It allows us to send messages back and forward from me to the patient. It allows the patient to log when their last flares were and how intense they were. Oops, I thought there was another slide, but it also allows them to send us their uric acid information. And what we can do with the flare data, which has an impact on your uric acid level, and the uric acid data, is provide direct advice to the patient about what they should do with their allopurinol, which for most patients is the effective treatment to manage their gout. Now we've got all the approvals in place. We've had guidance from the MHRA and navigated various obstacles I didn't even know were going to be there to say that this is not a medical device and that we can run with it. We've got Caldecott Guardian approval, thank you very much indeed. We've got ethical approval in place, and we're just waiting on a minor amendment, and we're hoping to roll it out in January. And then if it works in my clinic, then there's no reason why it shouldn't work in primary care across NHS Lothian, and if it works in NHS Lothian, there's no reason why it shouldn't work across NHS Scotland, and yeah, obviously we don't need to stop. So this could be transformative, and I think if it works in gout, it should be able to work across lots of other health conditions. Thank you very much indeed for your attention. Hope to collaborate with more of you.
I'm Ailsa Cook from Matter of Focus, and we founded Matter of Focus with my colleague Sarah Morton. We were both social scientists here at the University of Edinburgh a year and a half ago. And my fun fact is, not long before founding Matter of Focus, I co-founded a community coastal rowing club. And here's a picture of a few of our members rowing on the Clyde. Okay, so our solution is OutNav, and we're a bit different, I guess. It feels like we're a little data company dealing with lots of messy things that happen, because fundamentally health is about people, healthcare is about people, and it's brilliant to hear about all these amazing things you can do with data, but there are thousands of frontline practitioners and millions of patients and people trying to manage their health and bringing together lots of different types of data and information to make decisions. So we have developed a system to support that process. It's called OutNav. It's like SatNav, but for outcomes, because what we do is help people understand the outcomes of complex, people-based kind of processes in and around health. And I just wanted to put this slide up. Some people, I know Nick's seen it, but basically,
I think that concept of outcomes is really poorly understood, and actually we often think when we're talking about outcomes, we're talking about the birthday cake. We're talking about what we do as a service, but actually what we mean by outcomes is the difference it makes to people. And as a few people have alluded to, having your diabetes really well managed is the birthday cake, which then contributes to the outcome, which is you can live a full and happy life. So, you might want to use OutNav or a similar kind of system if the outcome of your intervention for a person can't be captured through simple measures. So we're working with a pulmonary rehab team. They have a get up and go score. They get their patients to get up and walk across the room and come back. That might be relevant to them, but what's relevant to the person is, can they get to the park? So we help teams bring together these different forms of data and information, what's important to the service and what's important to the person, to tell a story about whether or not it's making a difference. The other thing is that so often in this kind of work, getting the right outcome is actually about doing the appropriately different thing every time. So I know that, but how you're supporting people with heart disease is not by doing the same intervention in the same way every single time. We are all tailoring our services. So it's not as simple as saying, we've seen this person, this is the outcome, and drawing a line between them. So again, if you need to describe what you do because what you do is slightly different every time, then our system might help. And then finally, what we have spent a lot of time doing is trying to build a system where you can understand how multiple factors influence what you do. And if that's the case, how do you account for what you do? How do you tell the story of your contribution in and amongst all of that? So this is predominantly a solution that holds a process of qualitative analysis of qualitative and quantitative data. So there's lots of brilliant quantitative data out there, but for lots of things, it needs some interpretation. And it's great to hear about all this machine learning stuff, and I would love to know if there's possibilities to automate in that in some way. However, from my training as a social scientist and kind of many years of trying, so far we believe that actually there are some things that you just need to understand qualitatively as a person. And so our system, at the moment, it takes you from kind of service to team level, so you can understand from what a team does up across multiple teams up to a service. What we really hope we'll be able to get to is from like almost an individual interaction, an individual person that's being supported by a service, right the way up to an organization. So the system holds that process. Okay, thank you very much.